Now, what I'm very interested is, of course, the romancing. You said before that you liked my book because it was a positive, and I remember that when my son told me that, block him out, do all of that, but remember the romancing, and it was such a wonderful high.
Yeah.
And I've heard you talking about it too, and I think that we have there the common link that how on earth it is possible for a scammer to just grab your brain so much. So what were your feelings about that?
I think he groomed me very well. He found out as much as he could about me.
Yeah.
I was at a time of my life where I was probably missing something in my life, and I was working very long hours, so I didn't really get out and about and socialise a lot.
Yes.
And I'd never really gone online for anything like that. And so it sort of happened by accident in my life, really.
Yes.
It had its positives and negatives. And I think the thing that I will say is that he was very polished. He was a very educated man. He was incredibly good with his grooming and his romancing. And I guess they tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, it hit every nerve.
It did. And I think, as you have said in your book, that it releases endorphins in the brain, and they are basically the feel-good hormones. And I think for a couple of months, until the money issue became a big issue for me, for the first few months of the scam, it became almost like an addiction.
Yes.
His words of love, the beautiful music he would send, the poetry he would send, he really awakened a side of my personality that I felt had died.
Yeah, I think that there's quite a lot of women who feel the same. This is what I would also say. They woke up me into this life, and I suddenly realized how strong this kind of thing is when you are getting your hormones and you are getting this high. And it's very much like romance books. When you now read what he read, do you think that it's very much like from a romance book you've read before?
Oh, yes. When I do read back over it, I sometimes think, oh my God, how on earth did you ever get to the point that you did with this? Because, but then when I read back over it and I think, well, he just made me feel like I was the most precious thing ever.
Yeah, I've read some of the text messages what you got, and I must say that they are very nice and very polished. And I would, even as a like outsider, when I would read them, I was like, oh, that's what he said to you. That is true. And I had also some of the very similar kind, like, I've never found anyone like you. You are the best, and I love you so much. And this was like, again and again and again in the text messages. Yes. And you had lots of emails, which also were... no, they were not emails. They were from Facebook, right?
Yeah, I had an incredible amount of time put in with me. And I wasn't an easy snare, to be honest. I questioned everything all the time. And he would come back with this incredible romancing, and when there was a money stake there, the romancing would just become more and more intense.
Of course,
and there would be more music sent and more poetry sent and more dialogue, and sometimes he would then want to be online with me, not just once a day but twice a day.
To make sure that everything went well. Did you have some mess-ups with sending things like I did have?
Initially, the bank security phoned me and more or less asked me how I had met this man, because it was out of character with my banking history.
Yes.
To be sending money overseas. And they actually did say to me that there were problems with sending money to Malaysia.
Yes.
And that they actually thought that I was being scammed.
Yeah.
And I chose to ignore their warnings. And the interesting thing was that right through the middle of it all, and where the amounts were much higher that I was sending, they didn't really question those.
Yes.
But they questioned the very first transfer and the last one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they phoned me twice over the last one and said, "Are you definitely sure you want to send this money?" And I said, yes. And, you know, even though at that time I was kind of starting to feel things weren't right.
Yes, I understand completely. But then he's tried to come back again a few times.
I've had 2 recoveries.
Yeah, and more romancing.
The downpour of romance and songs and poetry was intensified on the second round.
Yes.
And it was, I guess, because I haven't taken the bait this time. I hadn't heard from him. He just fell off the side of the cliff, if you like. And I was just left dangling there without a ledge to stand on.
Yes.
The phone number I'd been using in Malaysia was no longer working. The contact through Facebook stopped. And virtually I did send him an email at that stage.
Yeah.
Telling him that I knew he'd scam me. And I knew it didn't bounce because it didn't come back.
Yeah.
So I pretty much just sort of thought, oh, well, you know, I've made a mistake. I've financially almost kind of ruined myself. Though I did keep my head to a degree with that.
Yes.
And I didn't let him take everything from me. But he took enough to put me in dire straits for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because I did have support systems around me that did sort of help me get through that time, because it was a pretty devastating time for me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like a withdrawal from all, because he just disappeared.
Yes. And then he comes back and
then he
asks
came
for
back.
more.
The first real contact I had back with him was about 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
And I had a message sent to me, "Hello, honey, it's not what you think." So then he followed through with that story. He always built a story out of a story.
Yes.
And he was so good at doing that. The next story was that he had been contacted by the FBI, that I was quite correct in assuming that the courier company was fake and crooked, and that the FBI had confiscated the consignment.
This was like also in the end there was an identity theft with the FBI. That's right. Yeah, they wanted to have your ID, even your passport.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about recovery then? When we, what kind of recovery strategy do you have now? Because now you are at the stage where we are, you know that it's a scam, but you're still a little bit into it. He's trying to get back to you again and try to involve your brain and your emotions into it. So what kind of recovery strategy are you thinking you're going to do now?
Well, I have had to learn that I have to completely block everything to do with him, so that I will then not have any contact whatsoever, or he cannot contact me. And once I've actually achieved that goal, then I will be able to move forwards a lot better, I think, in my life. I've been very lucky with my recovery because I do have a business and my work that I really enjoy doing, and I do get to talk to people all the time, every day. So I do have social contact there, and I also have a number of other different projects that I'd like to pursue.
I know that for me, writing my book distanced myself from the scammer totally, and then I had something else to think about, and then in that way I sort of lost the contact and even the will to in any way be interested in him. And you have lots of lovely things happening.
And I think the will to be interested does go at the time when you discover that you've been scammed, because it's such a betrayal of your trust. But on the other hand, as we talked about before, it is a type of addiction that you have, and so you really need to fill that void.
That's right, and you do have background in this. You
need to fill that void with something different in your life. And for me, it's opened up a whole lot of new directions for me that I can follow. And that's been a really positive thing for me as well. So I have managed to put together a tribute in the art gallery here for my mother's talents as a dress designer in the 1940s. And that's something I've wanted to do since she died in 1999. So that did occupy a lot of my
lots of possibilities there too. I've seen the designs. They're fabulous.
There's a lot of opportunities there to market these things in a very productive fashion. And then of course I would really like to write a book on the experience, but it's going to take some time. And I need to be a little bit distanced from it to really, I think, write it in a way that is going to be appropriate.
You can join our conversation in happy endings, like how to rewrite your story, which we are going to start here, and have even the courses and stuff like that, which are like according to what was my strategy in my book. And then you're very welcome to be part of that.
I do find it's a bit raw now still to go back and read over the dialogue, and I sort of look at it and I think, oh my God, how did you ever? What were you thinking?
Well, what were you thinking? What did you have in mind? How had you imagined your happy ending would be?
My happy ending was, I guess, that I'd found this most wonderful man who was going to be my soulmate forever, and that we'd walk off into the sunset together.
Like today.
Which, of course, is not reality-based. And real life is not full of romancing and fantasy journeys, is it?
No, it's not a romance book. I think that it's the romance books are a real exaggeration, but they do get your brain and they get your endorphins going. So at least some of that we should be able to have right in our lives, I reckon. So hopefully we'll find somebody who would be.
Well, hopefully. You never know what's around the corner.
That is right. Yes.
And I guess maybe there's sort of, someone out there that I've yet to find.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank
you. You've been watching the Love on the Line TV Conversations special edition with Elina Juusola and Patricia Meister, and this is in Bundaberg. Please subscribe so that you won't miss any other of our conversations, and have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening and watching.
Thank
you.